Football on Off the Ball.
With Sky. Watch big games from the Women's Super League live on Sky Sports.
Welcome back. We're still here. We're pushing on 11 o'clock. Kenny Cunningham wouldn't let us go. He said, we're staying, we're seeing what happens, and we're coming on here and we're talking about it. And we should have known what was going to happen. Real Madrid are a caricature of themselves. This is beyond my comprehension. They make no sense. They have been dead in this competition several times over. 91st minute, and they get back into it, and they get to extra time. And 95th minute, Benzema scores the penalty. They're through to a Champions League final. I mean, I know they're not plucky underdogs. They're all amazing players. But there's something odd about this run that they're on. What do we say about tonight?
Yeah, I think you can overthink it, to be honest with you. I see it in quite simple terms. I think in Man City, I thought overall it was a reasonably poor quality game. But City got themselves into such a strong position at 1-0 with opportunities to go 2-0 up and finish the tie. There was a couple of chances for Jack Grealish. But you never sensed potentially there was the goal coming from Real Madrid. And he made the substitutions that he had to. You could argue they kept fighting, they kept pushing. Of course you're going to do. It's almost in desperation at that stage from a Real Madrid point of view. But basically when it comes down to to this for me. Manchester City's inability to defend 2 or 3 crosses into their box. That's basically what's cost them. It's as simple as that. And again, difficult to point the finger at weaknesses this Manchester City team. But over the 2 legs for me, I look at the 2 goals tonight. Rodrigo getting away from the 2 Manchester City centre halves for his 2 goals. Ruben Diaz, player of the season last year, making a big mistake in relation to the Benzema penalty. You know, not having enough composure to realise that even if Benzema gets to that ball first, his touch is only going to take him away from goal. So rather than take the risk of going to ground as he did, stay in your feet, allow him to have the touch. There's no way he can score from that situation. So again, poor decision from the Manchester City centre half has cost him the 3rd goal. Think of the first leg, Laporte, stray arm in the box, mad stuff, giving away the penalty. Why Laporte never gets across to go and engage Vinicius when he's breaking into the box. So for me, you can overcomplicate it. We talk about it in terms of like character and tactically what went wrong, but fundamentally City from a defensive point of view really lapsed at certain moments over the 2 legs, and the 2 centre halves in particular I think have cost them. That might seem a little bit harsh, but that's how I saw tonight, particularly in relation to those 2 first opening Real Madrid goals. 2 crosses into the box, Benzema just helping it back into the 6-yard box, just helping it into an area. You're expecting your right-sided centre half to step across there, at the very least get the contact with Rodrigo. Doesn't do it, simple tap in, and then cross from Carvajal into the box. You're thinking, who's going to outjump the 2 Manchester City centre half? Surely nobody, and it's Rodrigo getting up early above Diaz and burying the ball into the back of the net. So back always, even at my small level I play the game, even when I was looking at an international level to play the bigger games and big moments, it always struck me afterwards looking back, do you know what? It's the basics, the if I'd have done the fundamentals out there, that would have been enough to get us over the line. Didn't have to be anything extraordinary in the moment, just the very basics. And at key moments of that game tonight, late on in the game, from a defensive point of view, Manchester City weren't able to do it.
As an aside, seeing as you mentioned the Laporte decision to run back to goal as opposed to cut off Vinicius for one of these crucial goals, because every goal is now crucial, is that now the modern thought? Is that modern coaching? Because in your day, I suspect you would have tried to cut off Vinicius, not least with Zinchenko behind you.
Yeah, I think you're right. In general terms, we've seen a lot of that the last half a dozen of years. Players clearly being coached centre halves to defend the central area of the pitch, and then it's other people's responsibility, holding midfielders, to drop into that area of the pitch and fill the space. But I just think the first leg at the Etihad, that was just poor decision making. Nobody was recovering into that area of the pitch. Laporte was the only one who could potentially get across and get into contact with Vinicius. He didn't do it. So for me, poor decision making from him. And him and Diaz then tonight as a pair, when their team really needed it, when those 2 centre halves, when they're penned in for the last few minutes, Real Madrid are putting balls into the box. Everybody, you're looking to your 2 centre halves then. Your centre midfielders, forward players are looking back to your defensive line there and saying, you got to step up now. You got to win that first header into the box. Even if the ball's held back in Benzema style, you got to be anticipating the next one, anticipate it, get across, clear that one into the stands. just do the basics, and that sees us through.
2 goals cleared, this wasn't top of mind for sure when it comes to City. But when you think about tonight as a whole, they managed to really dominate on the ball in the first leg. Whereas tonight, they never put patterns together, not with the fluidity and not with the ease. They were always, like in a way that you'd never see City, they were always struggling to kind of keep possession and keep it moving. And I don't know, is that more Madrid or more just City weren't at it tonight? But something went awry with City on the ball tonight in a way we're not used to seeing.
Yeah, they were always, I think they were searching, probably the best word for the majority of that game, to find that kind of fluidity that you were taught, rhythm. That real rhythm to their play, which we're used to seeing. Even sometimes when they have the ball, they're not particularly going anywhere with it, and they frustrate me a little bit in terms of sideways, backwards. But they pass it quickly, but a bit of tempo.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're actually dominating the ball. They're kind of dictating to a certain extent. Never got into that space this evening. They were always like searching a little bit for that kind of ascendancy in possession of the ball. I wouldn't say it was due to Real Madrid being particularly tenacious out of possession, Joe. To be honest with you, I think you'd make that argument both sides. I mean, Madrid are a possession-based team as well, but no team could really grab the game by the scruff of the neck. I think that was due to the lack of good quality in possession from both teams, which wasn't usual. But even still, City put themselves into a great position. Wonderful goal from Mahrez, and that should have been enough. You didn't sense there was a goal coming. I might have said Grealish missed that chance. You might correct me. It doesn't really matter. I think it's out. I can't see it. There was no sense of Madrid had a way back into that game. But just moments, just small detail. Again, you know, when they put those balls into the box and they asked Manchester City, go on, you got to defend your box now for 3 minutes. Defend your box for 3 minutes, you're going to a Champions League final. They weren't able to do it.
I should tell you that Kenny was calling for another Panenka. He felt that was the clever move. There's no way he'll do it twice, surely.
He went early to his right, didn't he?
Very
early. He went early to his right.
Panenka would have worked.
Well, I think the argument was extraordinary the first time, but the argument was stronger for me because, you know, in Edison's head, there's no way. No, in a million, there's no way he's But then, of course, it was no surprise. And give him credit, Benzema, considering he'd missed 3 before that game at the Etihad.
I know you've mentioned it. We don't need to just say it again. And yet I just want to say it again. Why Diaz jumps in when the touch is away from goal is so hard to fathom. It's so hard to fathom.
No, I can understand. We've all been there. I've done it myself. But generally, it's when you're younger, you learn, and you know what I mean. You make those mistakes. You get to a point in your career, and Diaz is probably there at the moment. Huge experience now. He's been around long enough to know. You've got to be sure. You've got to assess the situation. If Benzema's touch there is taking him towards the goal, to a 1v1 situation with the keeper, you've got to take the risk. But his angle of approach to the ball, you know that touch is only going to take him away from goal. It's almost impossible for him to get a shot in with his next touch, and he's got to see that. You got to keep your mind clear, and that's what I'm saying. The best defenders always, for me, are the best decision maker. In those situations, they make the best decision. Don't make a tackle, make a tackle. Follow the man in, drop off into the space. Anticipation, those type of things. We didn't see that, particularly from the 2 Manchester City centre-halves when it was needed. Substitutions tonight. Let me just throw all these at you and we'll try and make sense of this game. So, here's what Carlo did. He threw on Rodrigo for Toni Kroos on 68 minutes. This was in a bid to chase the game. I remember looking at this sympathetically going, well, I guess you got to do what you got to do. Took off Modric, which was interesting. We were saying, geez, the outside of the boot pass, and do you keep him on? Maybe he was tiring. So Asensio came in for Modric. Camavinga came on in 75 minutes, had an impact. Then Benzema went off after his goal, 105 minutes. I guess he was just wrecked. Ceballos came on, Vasquez came on, and Vinicius went off with 5 minutes to go. The Man City substitutions. Kyle Walker was injured coming into the game, no surprise. He played 72 minutes. Gundogan came on. Kevin De Bruyne, we'll come back to him, off on 72 minutes. Zinchenko came on. Jack Grealish got in a lot of ball. He came on in 78 minutes. Fernandinho came on 85, and then on the 100th minute mark, Sterling came on for Rodri when City had to really chase it. What about De Bruyne then? De Bruyne is a standout one, but easily in hindsight, Joe, isn't it? At that point, they're are they 1-0 up? At that point when De Bruyne came on? 72 minutes. So at Mahrez just got the goal. At that stage, Mahrez, do you know what? De Bruyne went off the minute before Mahrez scored. The minute before Mahrez scored. But these are massive decisions, absolutely. At the time, you can. We weren't jumping up and down. Oof, De Bruyne is coming off, because, like you're saying, in a comfortable position in the toist, still a goal up. But they're still, I think, as a manager, you've almost got to be anticipating almost worst case scenario. If they score, the ties level, we're probably going to need another goal. What players do I need on the pitch?
Regardless of the score, is De Bruyne not supposedly the heartbeat of your team? Like
but he wasn't tonight. He wasn't the heartbeat of the team tonight.
It was a bad night for him, wasn't it?
Yeah, you have to factor. It's too easy to say, "Oh, Kevin De Bruyne, what's he doing taking off?" You have to factor in the impact he was having on the game tonight. Physically, was there something there? The manager, we don't really know.
See, we'd interpret him being out at the weekend as him being rested at the weekend. Looking at it tonight, you wonder if he's carrying something because he was so far off it physically.
There might be a little bit of that. So I wouldn't be overly critical of Guardiola in that respect. And De Bruyne is a key player.
Yeah.
We know that. And it wasn't as if they were 2 or 3-0 up. I hadn't scored the goal. Mahrez, as soon as the goal is scored at 2-0, you know what? I can understand it then a little bit in terms of maybe. I don't think it was a huge. Sterling coming on for different, Gundogan coming on. I don't think really changes the dynamic. Joe. Yeah, exactly. Probably the De Bruyne is the one, but I think the fact obviously he couldn't really get into the game and impact the game probably made the decision a little bit easier for Guardiola. But I wouldn't be overly critical of the substitutions. Now Madrid were just chasing the game. There was just like
it's a bad night for De Bruyne. He's had criticism actually, even in Spain, as somebody who hasn't quite done it in the big games and the very big nights at European level or international level. And I even heard Gary Neville talking last week when De Bruyne was rested, and he was saying this is kind of a defining night for De Bruyne. This is a big night at the Bernabeu. You're the talisman. This is the night to really create the goal or score the goal, and just hasn't happened for him. He's still an amazing player, so I'm not even sure what my point is, but it's a disappointing night for him.
So my point about De Bruyne, I think there was a period a couple of years ago where Kevin De Bruyne didn't play. There was a massive drop off in terms of performance. It was a case of De Bruyne is not in the starting 11.
Yeah,
a little bit of worry, a bit of apprehension crept in. Now he was out of the Manchester City team for a couple of months at the start of this season, Kevin De Bruyne, and they didn't skip a beat. Manchester City, they went on that run without him in the team and really drove themselves to the top of the table. I go so far as to say wouldn't go so far as to say he wasn't missed. Are they a better team with him playing at his best? Yeah, absolutely. But I don't think Manchester City at this moment are as dependent on Kevin De Bruyne as they were a couple of years ago. I think Foden is the heir apparent there really in terms of the position which he holds. I think Foden will slide into that position eventually. Kevin De Bruyne is still an outstanding player. I think it's a fair argument in terms of not turning up for the big games. Ultimately, that's something he's just going to have to suck up, as Guardiola will, off the back of this result tonight. Never really does it the latter stages of the Champions League, tactically, the whole, whatever it is, can't get over the line. That's something which he's going to have to do. And maybe De Bruyne might end his career and there'll be a little bit of that criticism, but you can't criticise him in terms of his quality. He's an outstanding footballer. But I feel as if he's probably, maybe over the next year or so, he might be coming to that point where he's just on the way down ever so slightly. Maybe Jordan Henderson style. And I just don't feel as if Manchester City are as dependent on him. I think that was proved first half of the season. You know what I mean? Where they were pretty exemplary when they went on that run, took him to the top of the league, Christmas, New Year. There was no talk of De Bruyne. Or where's De Bruyne? We're really missing him. So at his best, absolutely. I think he can do things still other players in that Manchester City team can't do. But to do it on a regular basis with the injuries that he's sustained, he has had quite a few injuries. And again, in a big game this evening. Now you could say the first game
he was great in the first game.
Well, exactly. So I wouldn't particularly buy into that. Somebody can impact the game at the very highest level. He freezes or whatever. I wouldn't quite buy into that. But I think there will come a time, and it mightn't be too far down there. I don't think it's necessarily 3 or 4 years down the road when maybe we're going to see maybe De Bruyne play less of a pivotal role in that City team.
I love him, and so I don't quite buy into that he can't do it at a certain level either. I think he's top level, but it's an unfortunate happenstance that he doesn't have enough of these big nights in his career that you can point to and go, well, he did it that time and he scored that goal and he did that. To what extent is tonight now another mark against Guardiola in this competition? There are certain nights we can point to where he's made odd decisions, which were very obviously, Pep, that's a bad night for you in Europe. Tonight, certainly in team selection, you can't say is in that vicinity. So where do we put what box do we put this into on Pep? And
it's because I wouldn't. You're right, absolutely right. There's been in this situation, Champions League at this stage with Guardiola before, even last season, Champions League final, Gundogan playing that holding midfield position. I'm like, ooh.
Leon the year before. There was the night Bayern against, funny enough, Real Madrid and Ancelotti, where he came out and said, God, I made the worst decision ever. I went to a 4-2-3-1 and I've done all season.
Monaco game as well, Joe, when the goals conceded home and away there was like way open, you know what I mean, and things like that. But in terms of the setup of the team over the two legs, no, I couldn't argue with it. It's the things you can see that are not obvious to the eye for me. So we talk about Ancelotti, that kind of man management style. How does it have an effect? Did that kind of have an effect at that stage in the game laid on for Real Madrid in extra time? You know, when he stepped onto the pitch, when he spoke to the players, when he asked for a little bit more from them, how he kind of carries himself, you know, not just on the night, but generally speaking in the lead up to the game. Does that have an effect on the players in those key moments? They gain a little bit of confidence from that and keep pushing. I mean, I wouldn't say Manchester City gave up in that last 30 minutes, but they lost a little bit of heart.
We're gone, yeah.
I thought lost a little bit of spirit, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Now, Madrid didn't do that, to be fair to them. I wouldn't say they were banging on the door the last 50 minutes of normal time, but they were still pushing, you know what I mean? There was still a little bit of belief there. You know, collectively, there was still that kind of like, you know, there's a chance here for us. So you could make the spurious argument, some people might say, that to a certain extent that maybe that comes from the manager, you know, how he carries himself, you know, around the place in the lead up to the game, during the dressing room. We don't know, we're not privy to that, Joe, exactly. Like, you know, we saw Guardiola being very vocal there, you know, at the end of normal time, extra time, you know, how much of that the players absorb, where they really kind of to that, you know, they really take on board what he's saying, were they lifted by what he had to say? Yeah. You know, we don't know. They're the intangibles a little bit, aren't they?
Well, if this was on him, it's far less obviously from our perspective on him than the previous ones where it was very apparent. Just the last one, Jack Grealish for the final, I guess, half hour of this game, whenever he came off the bench, which was in the 78th minute, he was kind of a big presence out there. He was catching the eye. He obviously had the chance which Mendy cleared off the line. It certainly felt in extra time like he was maybe one of the few players that could go by someone and unlock a very crowded area. And yet it probably didn't quite happen for him either.
Yeah, could have done. Had that great chance, didn't he? Kicked off the line. Obviously, one.
Mendy got that one.
Yeah, wide of the post, like, yeah. So yeah, that conversation will continue to go on. I think there is we're talking about like Liverpool, Man City going forward, how they can improve. Haaland coming in. Yeah. But there's another area of the pitch for me where maybe a bit like Liverpool. I'm saying loads of very good midfielders, but could they sacrifice one of them and get a top quality central midfielder? Liverpool. I'd probably say the same. Manchester City at centre half for me. Laporte for me has been a disappointment now the last maybe 18 months. We're seeing the first Rodrigo goal here. That's like a hopeful cross into the box. Cancelo, is that Cancelo at right back? Yeah. Not doing enough. So Cancelo for me, brilliant in terms of attacking full-back. But when it comes to a defender, have a look at him here, Joe, and the ball's clipped in. This is the second goal. But the first goal, when Camavinga clips that ball to the back post, he's the closest defender to Benzema, right back. Yeah. Now, he should be driving towards Benzema there, trying to get a tackle, get as close to him or block that cushion cross back into the goal. Show a real desire to get there, you know, in terms of this is potentially a dangerous situation. I'm going to do everything I can, block, put my body on the line, put him off, put my hand in his face, stick my fingers out, anything I have to do to put this fella off, getting his peripheral vision. Have a look at him recover there. He's sauntering back. Yeah. Doesn't take that real pride in his defending as he does in his attacking. And that's a small thing. You wouldn't look at that goal and think it wasn't Cancelo's fault. But those things really matter.
This level.
But I'm saying centre half, Laporte for me, last 18 months, not good enough for me. Now Stones, you could argue Stones coming in there. I think he is the better all-round player. But for me, if money's to be spent, if I'm looking at Manchester City team saying where can you improve, for me Laporte out and go and spend money again and get another top class centre half in. They do that, and Haaland coming in next season, I still think they're in pretty good shape going forward.
We have weeks yet to preview a Champions League final, so we'll let you hold your powder dry on that one. As for what this means for the Premier League and for Man City and their ability now to regroup for things like Wolves away, when in some respects, especially Pep, will feel like the wind has gone out of their sails, the air's gone out of this tyre. This season is now like, another league, great, 3 in a row, great, but it won't be what it should be. This gives Liverpool a big advantage, or a bigger advantage maybe is the better way.
Yeah, I think this hurts. We spoke about this before, didn't we? How would it affect
But they go off a
Manchester
cliff
City?
energy-wise kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think in terms of picking yourself, I haven't had experience of this, but you know, we've all been around the game long enough to get a sense of absolute devastation in that Manchester City dressing room. I'm sure the lads after the game, they were looking at them now on the side of the pitch, only let's go. Guardiola will pick his players up now. The players will be determined to go, and that's the hope. But that's not a given. That's not easy to pick yourself. Yeah, you'll pick yourself up to an extent, but to kind of park all that kind of disappointment to the side, refocus and get your level up where it needs to be for every game between now and the end of the season, that's not going to be easy.
No.
And I don't think they're going to be able to do it, Manchester City. Now, where they're going to drop points, we'll wait and see. But for me, this result hurts them in terms of their title challenge, and it actually buys Liverpool maybe to a smaller extent as well. So that's the challenge facing this Manchester City team now, with some difficult away fixtures to come. That kind of bit of character and all the cliches, and it's really going to have to come to the fore between now and the end of the season if they're going to hold off that Liverpool challenge.
A lot of people need to go home. It's your fault we're still here after 11 o'clock.
You're locked out. No way you're. I hope the suitcase isn't going to be on the pavement, is it? Surely not.
10. You said 10:30. So I got to go. Everyone's got to go. Our football show coverage is brought to you by Sky. You can watch big games from the Women's Super League live on Sky Sports. So thank you to all the team for staying late. Thank you to me for staying late. Thank you to Kenny for making us stay late.
Pleasure.
We will see you again soon. Bye-bye.
Football on Off the Ball.
With Sky. Watch big games from the Women's Super League live on Sky Sports.